Hey, good morning, everybody, and happy Thursday. Welcome to Splintered Grace. My name is Tina Frank, and I'm the co host here. And I'm a conservative, mature Christian who follows the teachings of Jesus Christ.
Hi, and my name's Bonnie Violet. I'm a trans femme, genderqueer, spiritual drag artist, digital chaplain, and I also had a little typo in the ticker this morning, so I'm fixing that really quick. There, now it
I
says
am
do
not the
as I
only
say,
one.
not just do I say.
But I'm not the only one who makes those
Yeah,
silly mistakes.
no, my coffee's still trying to kick in.
Yeah, yeah. I keep forgetting that you're in a different time zone than I am. And rather than being ahead of me, you're behind me this time. Usually you're an
Yeah,
hour or two ahead of me. And
yeah,
I'm
right.
usually the
So
one
it's
on
like,
coffee
oh, it's
deficit.
10 a.m. No, it's 6, well, I guess it's 7 now, but yeah, so,
Wow. Well,
but
I
that's
like being
okay.
in Arizona where all that stuff doesn't change.
Yeah,
So
well,
my world is pretty consistent.
yeah, it wouldn't change so much if I just wasn't, in a new place all the time.
Well, you gotta live the travel life. It's awesome.
Yeah, well, and I'm hope next, excuse me, next week at least I think I'll be in the same time zone
Oh,
because
that'll be
I
cool.
my goal is to be in Idaho by then.
That'll be cool. I hope that happens for you. I know that's someplace that you want to be. And you've got a lot happening in there as well already, and you haven't even arrived yet.
Yes, I'm really, really eager. I'm eager to get to Idaho for a lot of things. Like I'm
Mm,
I'm eager to have I don't know, I feel like there's some sort of grounding and stopping that can happen even
yeah.
though like I still plan on traveling a lot and that sort of stuff, but I think also I just kind of want to be around I just kind of want to make friends and make like be around community, and I don't
Yeah.
know, it just feels like I
Grow
don't know.
some roots, huh?
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
For me, we moved out to where I'm at now, because it was an investment.
Mm,
And, it was during that time where, people were doing that, moving and living in a place for a few years and then moving again, and this is our first attempt because 'cause we're not really big on moving, but we thought, "Okay, we
mm,
can do this. We'll try this." So we did it, and we spent the first 2 years moving around trying to think, "Okay, where are we going next? Where are we going next?" Traveling to other places in our area here in Arizona to see where we wanted to buy another house. And then, the whole thing fell out the bottom. That was
mm-hmm.
2008. And then after that, we were thinking, "Okay, we still wanna do that." And then we realized, "No, we don't. We like it
Yeah.
here. We're gonna grow some roots here." And, we've
Mm-hmm.
been here like 18 years. I can't even believe it. I'm not that
Oh
old,
wow.
just saying.
I know
Um,
you aren't. You aren't.
but I know that for me, roots has made a huge difference. To
Mm,
feel connected, to feel a part of something. I've been blessed to make some friends along the way, and I have my community of faith here. We're finally at a point in our life where we work, sleep, and worship in the same space
mm.
and
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
same community, and we just really love it. So
Yeah.
I'm excited for you to have some of that as well.
Yeah, yeah. I'll see. I don't know that I've ever been that girl. Like I've always, I haven't really been to many places for very long.
Mhm. Yeah,
Um,
I do.
so I think, I was in Chicago for 6 years. I think that was a fairly good chunk of time, but not really. Like when you think about
Yeah,
like life and if you just think of like just life in general, it's like I'll
right.
be 44 in a couple of weeks, and it's just like 6 years out of that is not a lot. And even if you
No,
just want to count, since 18, it's still kind of a small chunk of time by
that's true.
comparison, and making friendships and having deep connection and I think feeling really rooted takes time.
That's been my experience, is that it takes time. And, not everything's been all fun and games and roses.
No?
There's still a few people. We still have people that don't like us, which is okay. Don't know why,
Right,
but,
right.
anyway, but it's cool. So I hope that happens for you sooner than later, that
Oh,
you can
it'll
be where you want to.
all in its time. It's
I
all
know.
good.
I know.
For sure. So yeah, good morning everyone. This week our topic is do as I say, not as I do. Um,
Mm,
and we'll kind of see where that goes. We had
Huh.
we had a bit of a conversation earlier in the week trying to figure out what is it that we want to talk about this week and where do we want to go. And so Tina had brought up this comment or this line, I guess, if you will, and it definitely resonated with me as something I've heard many times throughout my life. And I thought it wouldn't, I agreed that I thought it would be a great topic. So
Yeah,
feel free to make a comment about what your experience is with it as well. Be great. Do you want to start us off, Tina?
sure. I think that we all kind of have this syndrome that we all want people to do what we say, but we don't always want to do what we say.
Mm,
I think about some of the times when I would get myself all, wired for whatever, be it upset, be it excited, be it needing to make a tough decision and wanting counsel, whatever that might be. And then people would say to me, "Well, what would you tell someone else?"
mm,
And I thought, "Oh, that's so true," because sometimes what I can logic through and guide someone else through, or even suggest to someone else, I don't always have that same um, mindset when it comes
mm,
to myself. And so for me, I thought, gosh, that's definitely a do as I say and not as I do, because I'm not a very good example of some of my counsel sometimes.
mm,
And I know we've been talking about some interesting topics over the last few weeks, and I think that we have some of that happening all around us. Some I think maybe intentionally, some maybe not intentionally, because I think that's just how we, I don't know, how we operate somehow.
yeah.
Not to say that it's right, but I think being conscious of it is the first step to trying to eliminate at least some of it in our lives.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I kind of like this thought at times to think that, and I think you've said this before, but like sometimes I think people come into our life, whether you want to say God puts people in our lives. I think in a spiritual way, I think oftentimes we get people in our lives and I think we often say to people what we need to hear. Um,
Mhm.
I think sometimes people are often brought into our life, like they come into our lives in a way in which we get to say to them what we really need to hear. Because I mean, I think oftentimes we are always, we're always speaking from our perspective. Um,
Mhm.
we might be able to listen to other people's perspectives and do well to understand them. And I think that kind of widens our lens, if you will.
Yeah.
Um, but we still are kind of seeing everything from our perspective. And so I think oftentimes I can catch myself maybe projecting um, my stuff onto other people. Or sometimes if I'm mindful, I can think about like, oh, you just said that to so and so about this certain situation. What is that about? And sometimes it can be that I had an experience where I was in a similar situation, or I'm having them do what I did, or maybe do
Yeah.
what I
Yeah.
didn't do because it didn't go well for me or whatever. And so sometimes it can just be an affirmation and a reminder of like, oh wow, I did get through that thing, or I did do that thing, or you know what I mean, like as
Yeah.
kind of like
Yeah.
an affirmation or a reminder. Or I think sometimes it is also like, actually, no girl, maybe you should look at your life right now, like like why is that so loud to you right now? And um I think when I'm able to be like more connected spiritually and my intuition, I can sense that, okay, there's something's going on here.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure what that is, but something's going on, and really trying to explore that a little bit.
I think that's good. That's good. I think that's I never hadn't thought about that as you were talking about that potential that someone comes in and gives you an opportunity to realize something about yourself.
Hmm.
My reminded me of my pastor a while back gave a great teaching on blind spots in our own lives.
Mm,
And that kind of is a similar thing where sometimes we need to ask someone outside of our situation to help us to see some areas that we may be struggling in. The hard
mhm,
part on that is not being offended when they tell you what it is, because I know
yeah.
sometimes we
Hmm.
do that. So I think that's wisdom. But I
Yeah.
think both of us, both of you, jeez, both of us,
There's
I haven't
two
had
of me
enough
over
coffee
here.
yet either. Both of us have also had negative experiences with that phrase as well, I believe. And I think a
Mhm.
lot of people have had negative experiences with that phrase as well, which I think is why I don't know, I think it comes up for us sometimes and makes
Yeah.
me conscious to not to say it or at least not to imply it with the way I
Mm.
live my life.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think, and just kind of as a balance to what you said as well too, that people can point out your blind spots. I think also like people can actually show you or tell you how you've changed. I think oftentimes
Yeah.
it can be hard for me to see my growth,
Mhm.
because I could be like, "Oh, like I just did these 12 things that caused me to grow and be different, and they're all the things that I really trying to do." But there's this one thing that's still kind of there, and
Yeah.
that's what I want to fixate on. And then that's what I want to get like all upset or bothered about. And so oftentimes I need people to like remind me or point out like, "Oh my gosh, girl, no, like remember this?" or "No, you've
Yeah.
you've done a lot over," you know what I mean? So I think sometimes that can also be kind of the other side of rather than like, you did
Yeah.
this thing over here or
Yeah,
whatever,
it's true. Blind spots are positive or negative. It's whatever
Yeah,
helps us to move forward. Because sometimes if we don't see these things, it keeps us from growing
yeah,
and moving forward in life.
indeed, indeed. And back to the yeah, the don't do as I say, not as I do.
Mhm.
Um, my dad used to say that to us, like always. And I think sometimes the do as I say, not as I do isn't always conscious. I don't think
Oh,
it's not always like, okay, I'm gonna tell you to do this and then I'm gonna do this other thing over here. My dad had no shame. Like he would very much be like, don't do it this way. And I think it came from a good place where he's like, I've done this or I did this thing and it's not serving me well, or
yeah.
I don't like that I do it, or I didn't like that I have done it, and like, don't do it. I realize I did it,
Yeah.
but like try to learn from my mistake.
Right,
Um,
right.
so that don't yeah, just don't, I think I followed a lot in my dad's footsteps a lot more than he probably would have liked in ways that he wouldn't have liked, but I think that's just part of living.
I think you're right, and I think some of that stuff comes from an unconscious place. I don't think people I I guess maybe there's a few people tell me, but I don't think people innately wanna be hurtful and mean.
Mm-mm.
I just don't think that's our nature. I think that's something that we take on and decide to do, and so I think you're right. I think there are a few people out there that are like, "Okay, you're busted. You just said don't do that." It's like, "Well, do as I say, not as I do." And then I
Right.
think we have people that are consciously, just like you just described with your dad, that's like, "You're right, that didn't serve me well. If you could learn from my mistake, it'll certainly save you a whole lot of grief."
Yeah, yeah.
And I wish I would have picked that up a lot sooner because I walked through a lot of stuff I really didn't have to if I was paying attention
Mm.
to the people around me who were telling me, "Oh, I tried that and that didn't work."
Yeah, it would be too easy to, like, learn from other people's experiences.
Yeah.
Hi, Kayla. Kayla made it.
Yay, good to see you, Kayla. Good morning.
Yes, and we're glad that you caught us as well. We're excited to be back in the season, and you're a regular from previous seasons, so it's really happy to see you again. I hope life is treating you well, Kayla. Mm-mm-mm. So now where do we? Oh,
Oh,
I've missed you too. Nice. TWO and TOO, I think, right? As in the both of us and also.
yeah.
Anywho, I'm like lagging this morning.
It's all good. It's early, but it's all good. I
It's
feel like we
life.
thought when we were talking earlier in the week that this, topic might be a little more, um, I don't know, in depth for us, but maybe we've kind of figured it out a little bit, so that's good news, right? If
Yeah.
we're
Well,
if we're conscious of it, we're trying to do it in a positive light, but we're open to learn from other people's mistakes at this point in our lives. Maybe that's all good stuff, right?
yeah. I think Kayla's having the same morning we are. I think she did a typo and then now she's like, darn phone hates me, LOL. So I think it's one of those there must be something, is that Mercury in the microwave or whatever they say,
Oh,
retrograde.
funny.
Yeah. But well, and I think, because I think also one of the things that I think this also came around was the topic of encouragement.
Yeah.
How is do as I say, not as I do? Um, how would you frame that as encouragement?
Well, kind of along the lines we were talking. You know, as coming from a place of wisdom in a certain situation, or a certain experience, or with some knowledge that maybe someone hasn't acquired yet, and trying to encourage them, or back to our blind spots, reminding people that they do have the ability to move forward and maybe they would have a different outcome. And I think we always need to have room for that. That
Mhm.
just because we've had an experience, we don't want to inflict the negative on people, especially if they're coming at it from a different perspective than we are. And I think that's sometimes hard to comprehend.
Yeah, indeed. It's I'm finding it hard to comprehend. I'm just yeah,
Yeah, I'm
yeah.
in a little bit older group than you are, and, I know that
Slightly.
there are a lot of folks in my age group that think just because they're older, that their knowledge is wisdom and that
Mm,
we should receive it and not question it. And I think that could be a situation where, they're not necessarily exemplifying what they're telling you to do, but we shouldn't question it because of their number of age.
mm,
And so for me, I sometimes have to discern how to respond to that and what that looks like, and in an encouraging way, because I don't want to offend or take away from what they've achieved, I guess, in life.
mhm.
But I also want them to be able to support me in making this decision that they may not agree with.
Right.
So,
Well, and I think when it comes down to it, I think one of the things I've learned in recovery in particular, there's a lot of this idea of like, I can't tell you what to do. I can't tell you what's best
mm,
for you. All I can really do is share with you what my experience has been and how I see things at this point in time in my life or, like that sort of thing. But like when at the end of the day, it's like, this was my experience. If you hear something that like is helpful to you, great.
right,
Um, but like you're the only one who can really know, what's best for you in this moment or this time.
right.
Um, Kayla says, I think when someone says it that way, it makes us want to do it. Sometimes rephrasing the way we say it can make the difference.
I think that's true. What you're talking about, resaying whatever counsel you're giving or encouragement you're giving. That's kind of how I understand
Hmm.
that. Yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah.
That's good wisdom.
Well, and I think the level of intimacy that you might have with a person or the relationship that you're in with the person probably, I think would facilitate different ways of saying things or, phrasing them or
Yeah,
couching or cushioning or however way you want to put. I think that's again like just really figuring out how to best communicate with people in your life. And as we get older, we know that you have to be able to adapt how you communicate
yeah,
with different people in your life. Sometimes that's different words, sometimes that's just cadence or timing,
yeah, yeah,
location, all those sorts of things can be really, I think, important to be aware of um, when you're, I guess, having these sorts of conversations, um, ahead of time if you can.
right, right. I think the attitude also has something to do with that. You know, people give guidance based on sometimes not great things. You know, if you have a bad attitude towards someone, or you have a selfish attitude or a self-serving attitude as you're trying to guide someone, I think sometimes that can be misleading.
Mm,
So there's a lot of factors. You know, communication and relationship with people is tough. I think those are some of the hardest things that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. And if we could just find a place where we can all, um, I don't know what the word is, kind of get over my desire to tell someone else what to do or to be the boss of
mm,
someone else, and just to allow them the space to experience some things, to provide a covering when you can, to find a safe, provide a safe place for them to come back to in the event that they get out there far enough and have to retract. You know,
yeah.
to always find a place of honoring of one another. Man, I think the world would be a better place. but it's so hard because as we've become adults, the more junk we carry with us. I think the more tight we get, the more self-serving we get, the more we want to protect ourselves, the more we, you know what I mean? And I
Mhm.
just feel like we do the people around us a disservice. And so it's easy to say and put on a persona, you just do what I'm telling you to do. Don't worry about what I'm doing over here. And I think it's easy to do that, or we want to do that behind the scenes so no one can see us. So I
Right,
don't know.
right.
Just a little bit of a ramble there. Sorry.
No, not at all. Kayla's saying, yes, tone and timing plays a lot into it. Yes, ma'am, attitude. Right, ma'am?
Yeah,
Attitude. I think also showing compassion and sometimes saying, do as I say, not what I do, comes off judgmental.
yeah, that's true
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, whether it's judgmental of you or um or like of themselves, I think. I felt like, I feel like sometimes I think to say that to tell somebody like to do better than you did is also judging yourself, right? Like it's
Mhm,
um that maybe isn't because we do things that maybe um weren't the wisest or might have results that we aren't looking for, but that's just part of life, and I don't know that it's necessarily something that we need to be judged about or for, but just that but I mean, judgments don't always have to be like a negative thing or that sort of thing. But I guess to me, judgment feels like it feels more restricting or more limiting, I guess, than just um, like knowing that you experience. I don't know. I don't know. It just seems like there's a rigidness about that. I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah. I think, judgment and accountability can be, um, I don't know, confused. Sometimes when someone loves you and is coming alongside you, they wanna hold you accountable because they can see some potential in you,
Mm,
and we can receive that as judgment, and it could
yeah.
fall under this. You know, as we mature and become adults, we just need to be real. I don't even want to say the word sensitive because I don't want to live my life sensitive to everything and walking on eggshells. But I think we need to be compassionate towards people's experiences, people's outcomes of decisions that they've made, they're made on their own or that they've made in a group. And we just need to always approach someone and even ourselves. What's the best me that I can give right now? And if
Mm,
we could just make a decision to be an encourager and not I don't know what else to, what's the opposite of encouragement? A robber? I don't know. A
discourager.
discourager, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, just be an encourager no matter what. We got to try to meet people where they're at so
Hmm.
that they can see the forest through the trees. Because at the end of the day, and I know you and I've talked about this a lot, is that we're going to walk through the decisions that we make. If I counsel them, I'm not walking through that decision that they make. So
Mm,
why would I try to inflict that on them? So they need to walk through whatever decision they're going to eventually make with or without me. And I should always be in a place of encouragement.
mm,
So
yeah. Yeah, Kayla says, it's a very good point. We are speaking that over ourselves too. We need to speak edifying things over ourselves. True. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, I think
Absolutely.
there can be covert ways that we're digging ourselves in when trying to even help be of service to others. But when you were talking about when you brought up the word accountability, in my mind, accountability feels more like a positive
Hmm.
compared to judgmental. And then I was like, well, why is that? If they are similar, why does judgmental hit me in a certain way and accountability hit me in a different way? And I think judgmental is, I think that might be from my religious um, upbringing, is why it seems negative.
Hmm.
Um, in the sense of this idea of like judgment is about what you did wrong or what you're not doing right. Um, versus judgments don't always have to be have to be that way, I guess. I don't know. I was just kind of reflecting that a little bit, like where did that idea of judgment become so negative? And I don't think I really heard accountability much.
Mm.
Like, I don't think that was a word I heard much of when I was younger, maybe either. Um, I don't know. It was just a thought.
I think it's a great thought. There is a difference, and I think we tend to walk in judgment more than accountability when
Mm,
we're walking with people. And
yeah.
I don't think we do it intentionally all the time. To me, a judgment is having an opinion about someone that you're willing to share with them, but not offer them an opportunity to correct it,
Mm,
or even think that they can correct it. No encouragement to do that.
yeah.
Accountability is when you go to someone and you say, "Hey, you've shared with me that you desire these things, but
Hmm.
I'm seeing this in your life."
Right.
Not condemning you, but say, "Have you considered maybe giving that up so that
Hmm.
you can move forward? And if you need someone to remind you or to walk with you in that, I'm willing to do that." So I
Yeah.
think there's a difference in that, and I think you're right. Accountability wasn't a word that was used when I was growing up, probably when you were
Hmm.
growing up. And when we grew up in our households, they were strict households. You followed the rules. It didn't matter if someone else was following the rules or not. You followed the rules or you had
Hmm.
consequences.
Yeah.
And so I think some of those things can land differently on those of us at different age groups. And it takes some of us longer to work through some of those things
Yeah,
and
definitely.
figure out the heart of the person behind it wasn't not necessarily being mean, um, although it felt mean at the time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and accountability, oftentimes when I think about that too, it's like I have people in my life that I'll ask them to help hold me accountable.
Me
I've been
too.
having a really difficult time with like consistency and like having the energy to do the things that I want to do sometimes. And so I've had to really ask a lot of people to like help me.
Mhm.
Like can you just check in on me if you haven't heard from me or it doesn't seem like this thing is moving? Just know that I care about it and I want it to. I'm just challenged by this right now. And I just need
Yeah.
some help.
Yeah.
Do you want to read Kayla's comment?
Sure. Kayla says, I feel like the religion sometimes misses the mark. God, as our Father, shows us so much love and grace. As humans in church, it's too judgmental. Yeah, Kayla makes a good point. I have to say that religion and a relationship is different. And
Hmm.
there are a lot of churches that walk in religion. Um, and we also have to remember that each one of us is the church. So maybe you're in a building where there's a lot of people, and some of those people are going to be religious people, and some of those
Hmm.
people are going to be relationship people, but coming together. So, what I like to do when I'm in that setting, because I do like to enjoy church, but I tend to weed my way through the religious people and make community with those who are um, relationship oriented. Um, the, I don't know. I pray for those religious people. I
Hmm.
believe, the Bible says that I am the church, and so I want to represent the church in a positive way. And I don't want to be a hater for those people who are stuck in religious tradition. But God calls us out of tradition from the very beginning in the Bible. That's why Jesus showed up, right? Because there was tradition in the church, and He wanted them to not have tradition. He wanted them to have relationship,
Hmm.
and it's the same. It's the same. So, I don't want to condemn the organized church because I think it's necessary. There's a place for it. It's outlined in the Word of God, and It's a good place for us as people. But we do have to weed through, just like any place else. Not
Hmm.
everybody is going to be in a place where they can be in relationship with us.
Yeah. Well, and I think I like that. Yeah, I hear that, and I don't think most people would probably expect you to say something like that. I think
Oh,
as like a conservative Christian, you know what I mean? Like I know we've been in relationship and we've talked about you've said that you're not religious,
yeah.
and so you've talked about it a lot. So I think that's a really interesting thing. And then I was also just trying to think because oftentimes my mind is like, then why go? Like, like if you have to sift through people, but it's like I do it off like in recovery community, and I've had my own kind of challenge with that, but I don't agree with everything that happens in recovery. I don't agree that everything that is said or how people do their recovery, but I still go and
Mhm.
do life with people in recovery. And
That's
I
right.
think part of that is because we at least have some similar framework. Maybe it's kind
That's
of like that
exactly right.
social contract, if you will. Maybe it feels like there's more of an actual contract with, like a smaller group of people where it's like where you can still, I don't know, so you have a little bit to hold on to, right? You have a little bit
Yeah.
to connect on, whether it's similar language or values or I don't know what it is.
No, that's exactly right. In that space, although I know that not everyone is like me, I know that we have a core value system
Mhm,
that's similar, because 'cause they're not all the same, but they're very similar. And there's gonna be a few people in my local church that I go to that probably don't like me.
mhm,
I don't really care. Um, but there's a lot of people that do like me and that I can spend time with, and those are people because they have my same core value system that I can have hold me accountable.
mhm.
And like you were just explaining a little while ago, I think accountability is important for us to have so that we can continue to move forward in life. Everyone needs a level of accountability, not judgment. And
Yeah.
so that's the discerning point. Religious people, I feel, are more judgmental than
Mm,
people who are in relationship. And I feel bad for those people because I feel like maybe they've never had a real relationship.
mm,
And so the only thing they have to draw from is do as I say, not as I
yeah.
do. Because in that's a negative point, I know, and I don't wanna be the negative Nelly today, but I think a lot of us experience that in a negative capacity because when I run into religious people, and not just
Mhm,
in church, but religious people about politics, religious people about what I should be eating, religious people about what my body should look like and if I should wear makeup or not or whatever.
mm,
There's religious people of all different kinds. But the
yeah.
minute they try to get me to conform to their religion, they've given up relationship.
Mm,
You
yeah.
know, if I choose to conform a little bit to what they're doing, that's my choice, not their choice.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the accountability piece is different than a judgmental piece at that point.
Mhm. Yeah, well, and I think, I feel like I came from a place of religion,
Mhm.
and it seemed to be okay for me, right?
For
Um,
a
but
season.
but I think in order for me to really be liberated,
Mm.
um, I needed to begin to have a relationship with God and
Mhm.
with other people and kind of uh, see that there is more beyond than just like the religion. It's like and to me, it's like black and white, right? To me, it feels like if I were to label earlier part of my life, I would say I was in religion. I lived in a world that was very black and white. This is right. This is wrong. This is what's true. This is what's not, that sort of thing. Whereas I think as I've lived, I've come to understand that there is so much more going on than what I can understand or can
Mhm.
perceive, or you know what I mean? And so like there's more in the relation. And also it was really difficult for me to really connect with God or with other people when I had that sort of rigidness. I guess there was no
Yeah.
open space to be with one another.
Right.
Um, because it was all already like figured out. It's like this is dot 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 dot.
Right. Right. It can be very rigid, and and again, I feel bad for those people 'cause I think they're lonely,
Mm.
and they're looking for something that they can never attain as long as
Well,
they stay in that framework.
yeah. Yeah, I think it's like yes, and also like I know that it did serve me for a while.
Mhm.
I do feel I'm grateful to not be in that anymore, but I don't know that it just makes me a little bit again because I just see things from my perspective. I feel like I see people stuck where I once was. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And I feel like I've experienced liberation from that sort of way of thinking, and just so I think it's like it's the evangelical or the evangelist in me that wants like everyone to feel, to feel the good
Yeah.
stuff. Um, Kayla had a comment that said, the best advice I heard is sometimes we need to take the meat and leave the potatoes. You never say that to Idahoans. We take the potatoes and leave the meat. No. uh, Meaning we can learn and grow from everyone, but we don't always have to believe the ritualistic rules.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's all like kind of the same too. It's like we all have our own experience and we all get to live our life and we all live our life in our own way. And we like, and I feel like all we have to offer another person is just what our experience is. That's really all that's all we know. And our understanding of our experience. If I were to talk about my life 10 years ago, how I would talk about my life now is so different, you
Oh, of
know?
course.
And so it's not that at that time 10 years ago I was lying or it was just like that's all I could see at that time. That's how I was experiencing life at that time. And now I can kind of have a little bit different experience with that. Do you want to read
Sure.
this?
Kayla, we appreciate you having a conversation with us, by the way.
Yes,
So
definitely.
here's another comment from Kayla. It could be that they haven't had a real relationship or they are operating from a place of hurt. Thank you for bringing that up. It helps me have more compassion towards them.
Yeah. I think that's the thing that we all could do better.
Hmm.
Um, is having compassion, you know. I think we often, and I've been guilty of this too, and it's like in a prayer, you know, seek to um the Saint Francis prayer that I love, you know, is all about like this idea to like seek not to be understood but to understand, right?
Hmm.
And I don't I don't think I think we seek to understand knowing that we will never fully understand, because the goal is not to understand. And if I have to understand you to have compassion for you, like where's God in that?
Yeah,
Where's grace in that? Where's you know, all of that. And so I think that's the hard part is being able to, and I think oftentimes for me, when I'm struggling to have compassion for other people, it's because I am too stuck in my own experience to realize that other people are having a different experience than me. And you know,
I
that's my
agree.
humanity, you know, that's just part of my humanity. But I think that's the
I,
thing.
I think that's true. I think we all get an agenda for our lives or the things that we think need to happen, and we lose sight of so many other things.
Mm,
And it robs from us. You're right. It robs
yeah.
from us. It robs from us that compassion. It robs from us the opportunity to connect and build relationship. And it robs from us the opportunity to grow and to become better people.
Mm, yeah.
And so we need to really be cautious of that. I love that people are driven and motivated. I'm a driven and motivated person. Um, and I struggle not going after it all the time.
Yeah.
I struggle not going, oh, I can do that. I'm just going to get in there and get it done and show those guys what that's supposed to look like. But
Mm,
that's not always what God wants me to do in those situations. Sometimes God says, no, you've done it. So I need you to mentor these so they can do it. So they
yeah.
can feel the opportunity and see that they have the ability to accomplish these things that I'm putting in their hearts to do. So there's a difference between religion and relationship. And
Mm,
and you're so right. That compassion piece, when we have one without the other, we lose so much of ourselves in all of that and our
yeah.
potential.
Hmm. Yeah. And the compassion, it's like, and have compassion for yourself if you're struggling with having compassion. Because, like, I know for me, it's like, I'm just trying to think, because sometimes it's just like you can be in so much pain or or you can feel attacked or like you're in defense, right?
Mhm.
It's hard to have compassion be your defense,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. Like, and
Yeah.
that's probably just our own, you know, because I really try to think, I try to be compassionate, and it's been really challenging um of late. I feel like it's been challenging of late. For instance, I had a friend who I'm interviewing, a new friend who I'm interviewing for my Idaho Drag is Divine series, and they had a drag story time, and a church chartered a bus of people, took up the space, did like a sit-in protest, and took up all the space so none of the kids could enjoy the drag story time. And they had the drag story time, and all that sort of stuff. And I remember, and I even messaged, I was like, so when are we going to go to their church and sit in their pews? You know what I mean? And then my friend was like, no, I don't think that's the way that we do this. They're a very religious person, or they're I don't want to say religious because we just had a conversation about religion and spirituality, but they mentioned the biblical thought that um, it's not an eye for an eye type situation. Maybe this is a time to turn the cheek. And so to me, I feel like that was like maybe a more compassionate response, whereas I got in the moment, I was like, well, let's give them a taste of their own medicine, so to speak. Like, how would you feel if blah, 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 blah?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I remembered, and I was just kind of feeling like, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. I got caught up in
Yeah.
the
And it's
field
easy to
or
do.
whatever. Yeah.
It's easy to do.
Yeah, totally.
So I hope everyone has got those guys on your prayer list, because the Bible says that I need to pray for my enemies. And to
Mm,
me, an enemy is anyone that, I don't know, makes me uncomfortable, anyone who comes at me, anyone who I just pray a lot, and for a lot of people. So add these people. There's we always I'm trying to remember, there was a catchphrase and I can't remember it now, so I'm just going to try to explain it. We never know which how what other people are going through,
mm-hmm.
right? Walk a mile in someone else's shoes. That's what I was trying to think of. We have no idea what people are going through. It's
Yep.
easy for me to get annoyed with someone that's, waiting on me and giving me bad customer service, or get annoyed with me because they didn't agree with what I said, or even felt like they had to come sit in front of me and mock me while I was trying to do something that I thought was great. But I have no idea what their life's like. I have no idea what their day has been like. I have no clue. And I try really, really hard to be conscious of that, so
Mm-hmm.
that I can be compassionate towards them, and still give them a level of love and understanding that's acceptable. I'm not going to like hang on them and go, "Oh my gosh," but I'm going to be kind to them. I'm not going to raise my voice to them. I'm not going to be offended by them. You know, there's so many things that we can do, and that's a level of compassion for people.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I have kind of a worldview or a perception with God and spirituality, is that we all are one and we're all connected. And so it's like, for me to be hurtful or harmful, or like, I don't know, it's like part of me is just, I feel like oftentimes we have our own like personal responsibility as individuals, but I also think that like when things are happening in the world, that that's also like a symptom or a product of us as a whole.
Hmm.
And so like the bigger question is how do we as a whole um get to where we don't find ourselves in these places, that we need to, what is it that we're, and I think we talk about this often, it's so hard to just kind of like do our little part and feel like that's enough, um, when it seems like there's so many other things that are happening that feel either more powerful or out of my control, or you know um,
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
Do you mind if I share something out of my Bible with you guys?
I mind. No, go
Okay. I
for
say I
it.
won't share. You know,
I'm just teasing. Go
but
for it.
I know. But I was just in a Bible study yesterday, and one of the things that we're talking about is that um, God works in widening circles. And in this particular passage, it was in Acts. And, as a Christian, I'm told to go out and to preach the gospel, all right? Share the gospel. So I believe that I need to preach the gospel everywhere I go, and sometimes use my words.
Mm,
So for me, that means my life needs to represent my core values. So what we were talking about yesterday was that it strictly says this is the beginning of the church. It's in Acts 1 that the church is just beginning, and it's going to be widening in wider circles. They started in Jerusalem, then they're going to go out to Judea and Samaria, and they're going to eventually end up in Rome. So if you look at that in widening circles, and we look at our lives, see my life right now, I'm in Arizona. That's my Jerusalem.
mm,
So my life needs to be um, purposeful in this space so that it can spread out. Because here's the thing, one person didn't spread that out. It was the effect of their life in this space in Arizona that someone else may end up in California or Hawaii or Colorado. And if they're continuing and they also make an impact where they're at, and it goes wider and wider and wider. And I feel like we have the ability in our own little corner of the world, as small as that might seem
Mhm.
sometimes, that it's really not as small as we think. Because
Right.
that ripple effect or that circular motion going out, we can have the effect to encourage and empower and be kind to people and it be effective in other people. They may not even notice it at the moment, but they might find themselves going, "Oh, yeah, I did that because that lady in the grocery store did thus and so." I mean, so I
Mm.
don't know. So I believe that our compassion, our relationship, our faith, love, kindness can go out in ever widening circles if we're just willing to walk in it every day ourselves.
Yeah.
Long way around to that short statement.
No, it's perfect, and we're at our 46 minutes, so
Oh, okay.
that's a perfect way to end. Oh, it looks like we do have another comment.
Thanks for letting me share. I appreciate it.
Of course, for bringing that up. That we haven't. Did we?
I
Yeah, we
think
haven't
so.
read this, right?
No.
It could be that they haven't had a real relationship or they are operating from a place of hurt.
That's
Thank you
true.
for bringing that up. It helps me have more compassion towards them.
Yeah. It helps me
LOL.
too
Good point. I don't
because
know where those landed, but
that's okay. That's true. I have to always have that in my mind because it's not my first response.
Mm.
So, thanks for
Well,
joining me on that, Kayla.
and it can be so hard when you're also operating from a space of hurt,
It
So
can. It's
it's
not
just like,
easy.
hmm
It's not
but that's
easy.
but that's the response is like, where do I heal my hurt,
Mhm.
um, to where I can have compassion versus coming from that state of hurt, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. So, we all carry a lot of hurt in our lives. And it's like you had said in the very beginning, if we can look past our own hurt to be compassionate towards someone else, I
Hmm.
think that's healing for both of us.
Indeed,
So,
indeed. Well, I want to thank everyone who is listening to us, wherever you listen to podcasts or you're watching us on YouTube or Spotify. We're glad that you have joined us. Please do engage with us in the comments or direct message us, and I guess we'll see you or you'll hear us in the next episode. Take care
all
and
right,
have a good
you
week,
guys.
everyone.
See you, everybody.
Bye bye. Play that outro. Splintered Grace Podcast is brought to you by a queer chaplain. Follow us on all of our social medias, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook at a queer chaplain. Listen to us wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe, comment, like, and share. Feel free to tip us at Venmo, Bonnie Violet, and support monthly on Patreon. The song is original by Steven Sandnoff, The Chasm Between Us. Rest in peace, Tina.